Hello and welcome to our special show, Trump Watch. I'm Parikshit Luthra. The highly anticipated meeting between US President Donald Trump and Russian President Vladimir Putin took place in Anchorage, Alaska. The talks lasted 2.5 hours but did not result in a deal to end Russia's war in Ukraine. Despite Putin claiming the two sides had reached an understanding, at a joint press conference, Putin warned Europe against torpedoing nascent progress, but Trump was clear, saying there is no deal until there is a deal. He added that he will speak with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky and European leaders soon to brief them on the discussions. In an interview with Fox News, Trump urged Ukraine to strike a deal, calling Russia a very big power and saying Kyiv was not. On the question of secondary tariffs for countries buying Russian oil, Trump said, and I quote, "Well, because of what happened today, I think I don't have to think about that." He added, "Now I may have to think about it in 2-3 weeks or so, or something like that, but we don't have to think about that right now. I think, the meeting went very well." End of quote.
There's no deal until there's a deal. I will call up NATO in a little while. I will call up the various people that I think are appropriate, and I'll, of course, call up President Zelensky and tell him about today's meeting. It's ultimately up to them. They're going to have to agree with what Marco and Steve and some of the great people from the Trump administration who've come here.
India doesn't buy your oil. The European Union won't buy it. And why in the back of my head was I thinking, wait a minute, Donald Trump just delayed a possible increase in tariffs on China. Why do I think that probably President Trump was thinking ahead that maybe if you had to, that would have been part of the consequences?
Well, because of what happened today, I think I don't have to think about that. Now, I may have to think about it in 2 weeks or 3 weeks or something, but we don't have to think about that right now. I think the meeting went very well. Again, Mr. President, I'd like to thank you very much, and we'll speak to you very soon and probably see you again very soon. Thank you very much, Vladimir.
Next time in Moscow.
Oh, that's an interesting one. I don't know. I'll get a little heat on that one, but I could see it possibly happening. I did actually, after our speeches, he made a very good speech, and I also finished it up. And afterwards, we spoke. Right after that, we spoke very sincerely. I think he wants to see it done. I want to see if we can get it done. It's not a done deal at all. They're going to set up a meeting now between President Zelensky and President Putin. And myself, I guess, I didn't ask you about it. Not that I want to be there, but I want to make sure it gets done. And we agreed on a lot of points. I mean, a lot of points we're agreed on. But there's not that much. There's, 1 or 2 pretty significant items, but I think they can be reached. Now it's really up to President Zelensky to get it done. And I would also say the European nations, they have to get involved a little bit.
All right, joining us now to take the discussion forward is DP Srivastava, former Ambassador Abhijit Das, international trade expert and former head of the Center for WTO Studies, Prabal Sen of ICICI Securities, and Pramitpal Chaudhary of the Eurasia Group. Gentlemen, thank you very much for joining us. Ambassador Srivastava, if I can begin with you. Trump really laid out the red carpet. You had fighter jets parked at the airbase where Putin's plane landed. You had Alaska 2025 written. It was almost celebratory, so to say. And did you feel that Trump was looking a bit impatient, at least at the start of the summit?
Well, Trump likes drama and he likes color. And he likes a military. So all the elements were there. And I think it made a very good spectacle. The results may not have been commensurate, but at least the talks have not broken down. And I can only say this is part of a serial drama. And this was first part of the series where the two leaders met. Trump is always impatient.
But does it work in diplomacy, especially with Putin?
It doesn't work in diplomacy. You should not escalate the level till you are sure of getting the results that you want. He had taken one precaution, and this is probably because of the European pressure. That is, before the meeting, it was agreed that before the summit, he agreed with the EU that in this summit, he's only going to discuss, he will not discuss the territorial issue, which will be left for Ukraine to discuss with Russia later on. And this took out the most important item on the agenda and reduced the risk. So at the same time, it made sure that there could be some forward movement, or at least an illusion of forward movement. And he has announced postponing the sanctions, which is a good news.
You know, the jury's a bit out on that. He did speak about the secondary tariffs, and he was asked about India in the same breath. All he said was, I'm not thinking about it right now. I'll maybe think about it in the next 2 to 3 weeks. So we're trying to understand what this means, whether 25% additional tariffs will come into effect on the 27th of August, or does he mean putting this off, or does he mean that more sanctions, more tariffs on top of 50% are not coming into effect? Pramit, how would you read that statement? He was speaking to Sean Hannity. He was asked about India and China. He said, I'm not thinking about it. Maybe in the next 2 to 3 weeks. The meeting has been very good. How should India read this?
Well, I think we should expect a rollover on the sanctions. Trump has a habit of rolling things over on the tariff side. So I think that the secondary sanctions will be held back maybe 2 or 3 weeks, as he said, or something similar. We'll see what happens. But I think fundamentally it's not because of us, but I think it's because of Putin. He feels he's come to some sort of a relationship. Trump believes he's a very good deal maker. And a lot of that is about trying to forge a relationship. In this case, he feels he's got something with Putin. He doesn't want to disturb that. He's already kind of accepted a second summit meeting with him. So obviously hitting Russia with sanctions or further sanctions would not make sense in this situation. So he won't want to disturb that. And that's why we can expect secondary sanctions to be held back for the time being. He'll maintain that as leverage. But since we don't have a very clear idea of what exactly, if anything, Putin doesn't seem to have conceded anything to Trump. But I think we will expect a temporary ceasefire in the sense that Russia will hold back fire for a while, just so it doesn't insult Trump. And as a consequence, we'll also see sanctions being held back as well. So between those two, yes, this is what I would expect. That doesn't, of course, affect the existing 25% tariffs that are already functioning against India.
A very important point there by both Ambassador Srivastava and Pramit. Mr. Das, if I can get you in, there was a 25% reciprocal tariff imposed on India on the 1st of August. Then, on the 6th, he announced an additional 25% as a penalty for India's purchase of Russian oil. Do you now expect that the additional penalty, that is additional 25%, will be paused and it will not come into effect on the 27th of August? Would that be your reading?
Parikshit, thanks for having me on your show. My reading would be that once President Trump gets a leverage, he is not going to let go of it anytime soon. So I would be really surprised if the 25% Russian oil penalty does not come into effect on 27th August. What President Trump is doing is he's using that additional 25% penalty to goad India to offer deeper concessions in many areas, particularly in agriculture, in other areas as well. And he's a clever man. Let's not doubt that. And he's got the leverage. He will not let go of that leverage. So in a nutshell, I do apprehend that on 27th August, the 25% Russian oil penalty will come into effect. But I'd be happy to be proved wrong on that.
Right. And, all of us would hope that that 25% does not come into effect. Let me also get in Prabal Sen at this point. Prabal, when it comes to India's purchases of US oil, they have gone up. In terms of January, to June period, energy imports from the US for both oil and gas are up 70% year on year. We bought $7 billion worth of oil and gas. This could be almost 14 billion by the end of this fiscal. You know, an interesting statement coming in also from Mr. A.S. Sahni, who is the Indian Oil chairman. He has said that there is no pause on buying Russian oil, but reduction in purchases is taking place due to lower discounts and the cost differential. There was a time when discounts had reached as high as $40 per barrel, and they have now narrowed down to $1.5 per barrel late last month. They've slightly widened to $2.7 per barrel, and therefore we will buy from other countries, but there is no pause on buying Russian oil either. What is your sense with the current level of discounting and the differential between Russian crude and oil from other countries going down? To what extent will it be attractive for India to buy from the US versus other countries?
Okay, so I think if you look at the last financial year and FY24, if we go back a little bit more, the discounts obviously have been going down. FY24, I think there was an estimate on an average for the full year. India probably got a discount of around $7 to $8 on a per barrel basis versus benchmark crudes. That number came down to something like $3.50 in FY25. And in the Q1 commentary, as you rightly mentioned, most of the OMCs have said that that discount has now narrowed to about $1 to $1.50. So obviously the impact on GRMs, if you consider that the percentage of Russian oil has also been going down, it was as much as 40%, I think, in FY24, probably something like 35% in FY25. And in this quarter, what is interesting is that that percentage has varied between the three names. HPCL mentioned a 13% sourcing only from Russia, whereas BPCL still maintained that it got about 30% plus from Russian crude. Irrespective of the percentage, with the discount that's coming in, obviously, as you mentioned, other sources now become very competitive because there are trade discounts that are given of maybe around 40-50 cents, depending on the volumes that you're purchasing from any supplier at the end of the day. So if it is a question really of taking all the hassle, the logistical issues, the additional cost of insurance and freight and so on to procure Russian crude versus maybe procuring from other places which do not have any, sanctions sort of pressure, I think very clearly that percentage could actually go down over the next couple of quarters. Obviously, now, one will have to sort of monitor, as you mentioned, that the discount is once again expanded. Remember that EU's, renewed sanctions have mentioned a price cap, which translates to an effective base price of just about $47, $48 based on the current crude prices. So even if you add the additional cost, maybe the discounts can actually go up, making it more economic or more attractive for India to pick up the Russian crude percentage. But then that's something that probably the OMCs will decide on the ground on a day-to-day and on a week-to-week basis as these, as the situation sort of plays out. So that is where we are right now.
Right. Right. That indeed is a very important point. It's time for a short break. I'll request all our guests to stay with us. Don't go anywhere. We will be right back to decode what the Putin-Trump meeting means for the global setup on the other side. Stay tuned.